All right, Go Big Orange Friday is happening now because Ethan Stone of the University of Tennessee Daily Beacon is here. Ethan, good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. Fridays are my off days, so I get to just kind of chill, watch like ESPN, Sports Center, stuff like that. But I don't have any classes today, so I'm ready to get talking about Tennessee athletics.
Well, you're alone there because Ryan Schumpert, who's also here, Rocky Top Insider, is addicted to the Friday class schedule. This is multiple semesters I found that Ryan has just been like, you know what I want to do on a Friday morning? I want to go to campus. I want to make sure that I'm sitting in a classroom on a Friday morning, every morning.
Look, I think I went like 5 straight semesters without having it, but I've hit the back-to-back senior year having it both times.
Yeah.
Classes on Fridays and two of them Friday morning this semester, which is just brutal for the last semester. But it's what you get for procrastinating, taking econ. So got to live with my mistakes.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, well, at the graduate school and stuff, we don't have options. So like, I'm kind of nervous because I have to like be really really conscientious later this summer, for my last two classes that I need to graduate. But like, apparently one of the two is like super popular and like the most popular one in the program. So like, I have to make sure I priority sign up for it and get in there before it fills up. But I'm like, that's 9 months out. What am I supposed to do? Why are you telling me this now? Why can't you just go ahead and lock that in? Because there's not a better school in the country. We can all agree. And that's not because we're biased. And it's not because they have our money. No, it's the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. However, that gives me all kinds of anxiety because I'm like, why can't you just put it in there? Like, don't you graduate in December? So if you want me to graduate, you need to make sure that that seat saved. I don't know if you knew this or not. A, blue check mark on Twitter and Facebook. B, I support the Go Big Orange Friday every week. C, I don't even use a student ticket. I buy tickets into Neyland, into TBA. I sit there with the public. D, giving y'all money. No full scholarship, giving y'all that. E, just being in the area, giving money to the local businesses in Knoxville. I can keep going. All I ask from you guys is to lock this in. I don't want to be responsible for registering for this one class that's super popular. It's not my problem. It's not my problem. You're doing this. That felt good to get off my chest.
Yeah, I can
That,
tell that's been pent up for a while.
yeah,
Well,
can't say I envy that situation.
no, but I think it'll be all right. I think it'll be all right. And we still got to get through this semester before we get there. Well, guys, I want to start National Signing Day, quote unquote National Signing Day happened this week. Tennessee added one more guy who is, I when I looked at him, I was like, are we sure he's not meant to be a basketball player? Are we sure that Rick Barnes should not be bringing in Jayson Jenkins as a stretch big? Like, he has a frame that I'm like, well, the whole Tennessee football thing doesn't work out. Maybe we transition him into Rick Barnes's big heavy lineups because I think that also would work. But Ryan, what do you make of Jayson Jenkins, Northeast kid coming into the fold here in Knoxville?
Yeah, it was certainly a commitment that kind of caught me off guard. I guess I think it happened during the Texas game or one of the basketball games. It happened
Mhm.
during, and uh, I kind of figured Tennessee was going to be done after what they did in the early signing period, but kind of find what they think is a hidden gem up in Northeast, and certainly I think when you look at the defensive line position, Rodney Gardner. There's not a person on staff you have more faith in with evaluations and really anything than Rodney Gardner. So certainly a guy they found late and they think is a steal, and it'll be interesting to see uh, what he's able to do. It seems when you look at his frame that he'd be more of a long term prospect than an instant impact guy. But Tennessee did lose a handful of contributors on the defensive line, and I think there's going to be an opportunity for one of these young guys to potentially burst in and earn some. Probably not starting reps, but earn some real instant impact in their first year.
And Gardner liked to rotate last year, so I would
Yeah,
assume that there's going to be a lot of opportunities for rotation defensive line. So we'll see, especially with just the leadership void with Matthew Butler being out of there, and we'll see what that means for the Tennessee defensive line. But like you said, they're in good hands with Rodney Gardner. Ethan, what do you make of Jayson Jenkins or anything else about the 2022 recruiting cycle for Tennessee now that it is officially wrapped up?
Yeah, now that it's just I'll clarify what Ryan was saying. It was during the Texas A&M game, and the only reason I
Mhm.
remember that is because it came at a weird point in the game. I can't remember what was happening, but I was typing something out, and then I
Mhm.
just happened to notice, and I was like, "Ah, whatever. I'll find out about this guy later." But just another defensive line, another defensive end guy to add with James Pierce, add with Tyree West, that Rodney Gardner already has a pretty decent amount of firepower, I guess, to rebuild the the defensive line that has seen a lot of turnover over the past over last season. But yeah, just kind of what Ryan said. It's just another piece. It's always good to have defensive linemen. It's always good to get guys late, especially still rebuilding as Tennessee is right now.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think it's interesting because when you look at the depth chart, the projected depth chart for next year on the defensive line, it's wild. Like the defensive tackle spots seem completely up for grabs. Like I don't know. We don't know. We saw some flashes with Rajon Terry, the Kansas transfer. Getting Barron back out of the portal, I think, was huge because he's going to be a big guy off the edge for them this year. And who, I don't know. Like I don't know if they're Wes was a huge surprise because that was like a late steal basically by Tennessee to bring him in out of Tift County. Shout out to Tift County. Blue Devils, their head coach was on this very podcast a few weeks back. So shout out to Tift County, Georgia, down there in the South. We actually played them in the 1997 state title game, Parkview, Tift County. I want to say we won that one. That was our first one. It's either 97 or 95. Buster Faulkner, who's now with UGA, was the quarterback at Parkview at the time. Quincy Carter was at Southwest DeKalb, I want to say. So, yeah, I can give you all kinds of old Friday Night Lights high school football. This was literally all before y'all were born, which really upsets me as well because that's just insanity. Like, y'all were not even born when Parkview went. So I'm looking at my Parkview helmet. So when Jeff Francoeur, y'all know Jeff Francoeur, when he was at Parkview, he 3 straight seasons undefeated. 3 straight undefeated seasons in high school football. We were the number 1 team literally in the country. Parkview was. And you guys were not alive for any of it. Like it's just preposterous to me. Just preposterous. You know what else is preposterous? The amount of turnover in Tennessee high school football. Do you see Alcoa stepping down? Yeah. The Tornadoes. There might be a tornado of a situation over there in Alcoa.
That one fell on its face, to be honest.
Oh, good gosh.
Yeah, I think they just replaced him, actually. It's
really? Okay.
Brian Nix, something like that. I've never heard of him, but it's pretty hard to replace a guy like that. So.
Maybe from Florida State.
He'd been defense coordinator there since like 2005, 2006. So he'd been long time assistant.
Well, speaking of, yeah,
I was gonna say, isn't Patrick Nix Bo Nix's dad's name too?
Is it? Okay. That might be. That sounds
That was
right.
the first thing that came to mind when I knew the guy's last name was Nix, but I don't think it's Patrick Nix now.
I don't think it is. I can't remember his first name.
Well, maybe
Brian sounds right.
Well, maybe it was Chris Ricks was the quarterback for Florida State. Was it Chris Ricks back in the day? I don't know. Another quarterback who may have been the quarterback of the Florida State Seminoles before you guys were alive. I got to think about it. Chris Ricks. I could be wrong. But now this is going to bother me. But yeah, no, we as a collective unit on this very podcast, because we ultimately want Tennessee athletics to be the best that they can possibly be. Part of that is fixing the Tennessee high school football region classification issue that is just an absolute dumpster fire. Like I can do this. Like GHSA is perfect. Like it makes sense. It's easy. 7 classifications. It all makes sense. It's very simple. Tennessee, I was looking at it the other day. It just will never not be crazy to me. Like I don't understand what they're doing here. Scrap it all. I know Oak Ridge just put on, just added Hall's head coach as their new head coach. So we'll see what happens there. But look, man, reach out. Let's get together. Farragut's head coach, Carnes, Ridge, Alcoa. Let's figure this out. Over there in Ryan's country, we got Brentwood, Oakland. Go over there with that nonsense at Carnes in Ethan's territory. Just the absolute nonsense that we saw in Carnes Oak Ridge this past year. Deshaun Bishop, just a little cheat code, and just that fan base they have these little phones or something, like they're playing music, Ryan. It's preposterous. They're just playing like the hits, like for the whole game. That's all they're doing. They're just playing like now top 100 the entire game. It hurt my soul. It hurt my soul to see these kids just playing like, I don't know, Jason Derulo while like there's a big Deshaun Bishop play happening in front of them.
That is so accurate. And they have about 700 speakers pointed towards the exit, and it's not a big stadium.
No,
it's the loudest thing of all time, and it's like
you can hear it across the field.
Yeah,
you can hear it across the field, and I couldn't believe it. But man, can you guys tell that I miss high school football and like on nights like tonight, just being able to go over and check some games out. But we talked about Tennessee basketball a little bit here. So they beat Texas A&M earlier this week on the road at South Carolina on Saturday. The game last Saturday was just the Texas game was that feels like forever ago. It's amazing how it really wasn't that long ago, but it feels like forever ago. They come all the way back. They lose in the last play where we don't have to relitigate all of it, but I think I want to get y'all's perspective. My perspective on the last play and to bring it all the way back. And I thought that was impressive that they kept fighting and they didn't quit and that Kennedy Chandler was not around for that final bit. So I thought that was pretty interesting by Barnes to pull that card. But Ziegler brings them all the way back because Ziegler is so much fun. But right play call, just wrong guy. Like it was, I remember sitting at my table and my dad was in town and my dad and the Sports Renaissance and I were watching. I was like, oh no, it's over. Because like the second I saw that it was a pop out to Josiah Jordan James at the top of the key, I was like, it's over. Like he's not hitting that. He hits 1 of 9 of those. Like he's not hitting that. There's no chance. And it hurt my soul that it was such a great play call and he designed it for Josiah Jordan James, who was never going to hit that. There was no universe where he was making that shot. Am I being too hard on him? But it was also like
yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
I think you are
yes,
as well.
Exactly. I mean, who on the court did you want to take the shot? Because
nobody. I wanted Ziegler to draw a foul. I just wanted him to go up. Like when he was driving,
I go in there 1v3, which there were
yes.
3 people sitting in the paint.
Yes.
Hope on the road that the 5'9" guy is going to get a call.
You never know. I would rather go down with that.
Guess. Josiah hit 2 threes in the 16-0 run.
That was the game up. But that's the bigger reason to not do it. He cashed out his 2, and now we have to go 17 straight of nothing. Like that was his thing. He's shooting like what 28% from 3 this year.
Something bad, but it has been good as of late.
Oh my goodness.
It's in the Tennessee game notes. It's like 40% over the last 7 games.
Okay.
And I mean, again, I just go back to I don't see what. I guess I get the overall frustration. It doesn't, game-winning 3. Josiah Jordan James is not exactly the guy you want in that situation. But when you look at who's on the court, Victor Bailey, Cam Watt, I'd rather him have Vescovy. I would still rather take Vescovy, but he was still 0 of 5 in the game. Like to me. A wide open 3 for probably your second or third best shooter, probably your third best shooter on the court who had shot well that game. I just don't see how that's. I've seen much worse Rick Barnes drawn up plays at the end of the game to complain about that.
Ethan, 4, 5, or 6 seed. Where do you think the Vols ultimately end up? Now that they sit at what 15-6, 6-3 in the SEC, where do you see them ultimately falling out at this point?
I want to make a quick comment on that, and then I'll go to it. I'm not going to go into it very long. Josiah James was the one that hit the 3 against Texas Tech to go to overtime. Just throwing that out.
Yeah, I think you're making my point. He used all of his good luck. All of the good fortune was used up weeks ago. It was used up. You're playing with fool's gold.
I can understand not wanting to, I guess, defend a guy that like Josiah that has had his struggles shooting the ball. But I think just in that situation, I would have been okay with it. Moving on, though. I think Tennessee right now.
I feel attacked.
I think Ken Pom has him as like a 5. Wait, what'd you say?
I feel attacked on my own podcast. I just the 2-on-1 assault here by the kids that weren't alive for the Jeff Francoeur era of Heartbeat football, who don't even have any recognition for anger management. Like this whole evening has just been about, hey, let's remind Chase that death is near. That's great. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, only like 60 years, but yeah.
60? I don't want to be 90. 60.
You know what
60.
I mean. But I think Tennessee. I think Ken Pom has him at like a 5 right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm not very high in Tennessee. I don't think they should be ranked very high, to be totally honest with you. I think 6 is being really, really nice, to be honest with you. I don't think they'll go very low just because they have good wins, against Arizona. A team that can beat Arizona, they're not going to go too low, in my opinion. But I don't think it's going to be 4 or 5 range. Just in my opinion.
I don't think they can fall past 6. Like the rest of the schedule is pretty nice for them. I think they're through the worst of it. So I think the worst case scenario is 6. I'm going to say they're going to end up as a 5, but we'll see what happens down the stretch here. I want to talk about the quarterback depth chart now. Now that we've got that laid out, I think this is pretty fascinating. So now that we 100% know that it's Tayven Jackson, we got Navy Schuler, an all-time great name, coming in here, transferring from App State. Obviously, his dad, he's Schuler, played at UT. Joe Milton returning for his redshirt senior year, which is amazing. I can't believe Joe Milton's already a senior. And then obviously super senior Hendon Hooker. Are we okay with these four? Is this a like where would you rate or how do you just feel like a temperature check like on the four that are in the room right now? No Bailey out there at UNLV right now. Which is interesting to monitor because like Bailey ended up at UNLV and it looks like GT Daniels is going to have to end up at a group of 5 school too. So a lot of these X5 stars who bounce around a little bit, like that, the grass is not always greener, is what we're finding here. And I think it's a harsh reality check for a lot of these former superstars out of high school. But Ethan, what do you make of the quarterback room as it stands right now with those four?
See, I think it's good because you've got a dark horse Heisman guy in Hooker. Now, if he goes down, I don't know. Joe Milton's certainly a dude that can step in. You got Tayven Jackson is certainly a project, but still a dude that can step in. And like, if there's one guy to trust developing a quarterback to get a guy that'll be ready behind Hendon Hooker, behind, like I said earlier, a dark horse Heisman candidate, it's Josh Heupel. He's a guy that has had a track record of developing these quarterbacks to go win games. At least, the very least, step and get you a couple games if Hooker goes down with like a finger injury, something like that sidelines him for a game or two. But I don't know. When it comes down to it, when you got Hooker, you got to feel pretty good about what you've got going on.
What do you think, Ryan?
That last sentiment, I think, is completely correct. Having depth at the quarterback position, it's kind of impossible. I mean, if we're being honest, in this transfer portal era, I mean, you just have to have a really good young quarterback who's waiting going to be a freshman, maybe a sophomore. No one that's good is waiting 3 years. And what's Tennessee going to go out and attract in the transfer portal right now for the backup position? Not much of anything. So while Joe Milton may not be a great backup quarterback, he's at least a guy that's been in your system a year, should have a comfort level, and then you have that young quarterback who you hope is the future in Tayven Jackson. And I think when you really break down what this group looks like top to bottom, I think it comes down to what he can do. And I think maybe Schuler's a solid person just to have because of how active the transfer portal is. I mean, like we saw last year, Tennessee had 5 scholarship quarterbacks on their roster in June and had 2 by the end of the season. If someone were to get hurt, someone had to come out of game to have a walk-on like Navy Schuler who was able to go play at an App State level school. I know he never started, but it is certainly better than I think your typical walk-on quarterback. I think that's exactly what you want for that last spot. So it's good because Hendon Hooker is good. And then after that, I think is kind of making the best of what's a really hard situation to build depth at that position.
It's also nice to know that if we have to play outside of Neyland in the Tennessee River, we've got a quarterback who is tailor-made for that situation. Like he's
maybe Admiral Schofield will be at the game too.
That might be. Like it might be. Like who wants to face Navy Schuler on the Tennessee River? I don't think many people do.
They've got a thing going there, don't they?
Yeah, they do. They have a type. Here, I like this question though. Ryan, who do you think, now that the class is complete, who do you think will be the most impactful year one player? And let me add this too, by the way, on this was something I written down in my notes, is like I looked at the quarterback room and I'm like, if we still had Caden Salter in the room, I think I'd feel a lot better. If Caden Salter's not out of the mix and we had Caden and Tayven to compete for that future Tennessee job, I feel a lot better. I don't know if Tayven still commits and comes here, if Caden's still on the roster, but if we're going into next year with those 4 and then the walk-on in Schuler, I'd feel a lot better. Like having the 2 potential guys, like kind of that's what Georgia has with Vandegrift and Gunnar Stockton. You like want those 2 to like battle it out. You don't just want the one and you hope for the best, because I think that would have been interesting to see who separated themselves more between Tayven and Caden. And I think that's kind of forgotten about with Tennessee fans, is that like Caden was a big get early on for this Heupel staff, and for it to unfold the way it did was really unfortunate, because like I could see him just tearing it up at Liberty in that system that Malik Willis has. So we'll see. But in terms of who do you think, is it Caleb Webb? Is it Pierce? Is it West? Who do you think makes the biggest freshman impact this fall, Ryan?
That's a good question, because I think there's a handful of guys that are pretty logical answers, and I'll kind of go with a more under the radar one. I'll say Squirrel White. I think there's going to be opportunities at receiver, and I think his speed could force Tennessee's offensive staff to get him on the field early. And he may not have a complete grasp of everything in the playbook and everything Tennessee wants to do. But I think, much like we saw with Jalen Hyatt 2 years ago, his freshman year, I think his talent and his speed is going to kind of force Josh Heupel and Alex Golesh to figure out a role for him right away and figure out a way to get him on the field.
Also, the marketing with the squirrel guy. Have you seen him around campus? The Oak Ridge squirrel guy. Like, I cannot wait for that first picture of those two together. Like, that's going to be a great thing. I'm excited for that one. And it's also amazing to me how many people like willingly just pick up the squirrel and just put him on their shoulder and pet him and everything else. I'm like, this man, carrier of diseases, can't be doing it. It's cool to look at. I like that we have a squirrel mascot. It's cool, but I'm not putting the old squirrel on my shoulder. It's not happening.
The squirrel was the squirrel is a big fan of the Beacon offices. I don't know.
Oh, really?
You can give me a more. I just feel like he was in there a lot in my time there, and yeah, I never had any desire.
You say he's in there, like he's just like the guy's just coming in there with the squirrel. How does that work? What do you mean?
Yeah, basically that's what I mean.
Oh.
I just felt like 2 or 3 times in like my 2 years as sports center, co-sports center, when I was in there a lot, he would just like randomly be in there, and I never really exactly understood why. I don't know. Does the squirrel guy do anything besides have the squirrel? I mean, he seems to be on campus almost 24/7. It's one of the great mysteries to me.
That's wild.
So
I'm just befuddled by Tennessee secrets. Are we going to get cut off? Is this stream going to get cut off mid-show?
Yes.
Are we getting to the bottom of some kind of squirrel conspiracy theory going on in the Beacon office? Who knows? Maybe the squirrel. Never mind. I'm not going to get on that rabbit hole. Ethan, who is your pick? Who do you think?
I was gonna go similar to Ryan actually and say White, but I'll be different and I'll get away from Caleb Webb too. I think Justin Williams will be interesting, not necessarily because he's a really good talent, which he is, but more importantly, just running backs just get beat up. And Heupel likes to run the ball when it comes down to it. So I highly doubt that Jalen Wright, Jabari Small are going to be healthy the entire year. And I feel like he's the next guy up. I feel like he's the guy that, could play a role kind of like Jalen Wright played this season. Like,
yeah,
just a guy that can come in for a couple snaps every once in a while, maybe make a big play or two that, could be big on a certain drive or something. I'm not expecting him to light the world on fire, but I think he'll have a bit of an impact this season.
I think he also brings some physicality to Small and Wright that don't bring to that room. I think he was a good piece to add. I think he's going to complement what they already have in that room well. And with Tennessee not getting someone in the portal, I think you're right, Ethan. I think he's a guy that will certainly have some sort of role. How big will certainly be determined still.
Tion Evans is just going to be a mystery to me. Like, he'll never not be a Do we ever get clarification on why he dipped when he did and like why he ended up at Louisville? Do we know the story behind this? It's so random. He was so good here. There's no reason for him to leave. He was baby Kamara. I'm not going to get over this for a while. Like, Tion is going to bother me for a long time, I think.
Yeah, and that's what I think is the weirdest part about it is that he's ended up at Louisville. Like, he was good enough on the field to end up at really anywhere in the SEC. You would think they would have taken him. Like, he was a very good SEC back. I mean, Jabari Small's a good piece, really solid player, but I think
he's just not a bell cow back. He can't handle it.
Tyon's a whole another level of player and just has very talented, which makes it brutal to lose and makes him ending at Louisville more puzzling. But I'm glad he ended at Louisville. I'm glad I don't have to watch him in the SEC being tortured by the frustration. He'll probably just absolutely torch ACC defenses. So it'll make Tennessee look worse for losing him, but at least he won't be doing it at anybody's expense. Maybe he'll have a big game against Kentucky last week of the year, get a win over the Wildcats.
It is interesting, right? Like, you have him going to Louisville, and then the year before you have Ty Chandler ending up at North Carolina. But also, like, it's back-to-back years where it's like, are these Tennessee? Who's somebody like this? Maybe will be my job as the biggest Tennessee guy here in the Knoxville local area. I think my responsibility, and I'm volunteering myself for this, but I think my responsibility is when a Tennessee athlete is about to make a bad decision, I pull them aside and I'm just like, okay, so here's the deal. I understand you've got some Jeremy Grant-itis where you think you're something that you're not. And here's the problem with that. You're going to go somewhere else where you're not going to average 8 yards a carry, or you're going to never be on TV. Like, here is the situation. Eric Gray, did you hear his name at all this past year? Eric Gray went to Oklahoma. I was like, oh, theoretically, like, yeah, I should probably leave. Like, it's a new staff. Like, I came in here with Heupel and Jim Chaney. Okay, great. didn't work out. Like, do we need to do the side-by-side with Jabari Small and Tion Evans versus what Eric Gray did for the majority of the season in Oklahoma? Like, he made a mistake. Tion Evans, do we need to replay the tape if he's getting ready to leave? I'm like, hey, okay, here's the Mizzou tape. Do you remember what you did in this game? Do you remember what you did to Mizzou in this game? Do you think you're going to have it any better anywhere else? Why leave? What are we doing? No, you're not going anywhere. I'm not signing the papers. Tion. I'm not signing it, Gray. You know what would be great? Gray and Evans in my backfield this year. That'd be great. That would have been awesome. I don't know. These athletes, they're making decisions that I don't agree with. So that's not okay with me. Not okay.
The world revolves around your wants and needs also.
Well,
Chase,
I know what's yeah.
I was just gonna say that rant could not have screamed "I tweet at recruits" more than.
See, here's the thing. I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm not going to do any of this personally to them.
Yeah.
But if I ever run into them out, I'm going to be like, you made a mistake. Like, I'll absolutely just pull them aside and be like, what were you thinking? Like, who was in your ear? Whoever was in your ear was wrong. Not only that, it's unfortunate because I thought we could have been the best of friends, Eric Gray. I thought that could have been a thing, a long-term friendship. Ryan, what can the good folks check out with you and the rest of the staff at Rocky Top Insider this weekend?
Yeah, plenty of basketball stuff, both on the men's and women's sides. Stuff kind of recapping the Texas A&M win, and then kind of looking at the halfway point where Tennessee is at halfway point in SEC play, and then plenty of stuff to get you ready for Lady Vols, who are struggling a bit, but a big one Sunday night at UConn, so that should be a fun game Sunday afternoon, actually, not Sunday night. And then plenty of stuff also kind of putting a bow on the 2022 class and signing day this week.
There you go. Ethan, what about you and the good folks over there at the UT Daily Beacon run by Mysterious Squirrels?
Apparently, I'll go on a brief tangent about that first. Like, all the editors seem to like know who, and like me and Josh are just like, I have no idea what is happening here. Like, maybe it's just a sports editor thing, Ryan, because I've never seen this squirrel in the office, but I don't know.
Wait, are we sure the squirrel exists? What if it's like he only shows himself to people that are worthy? What if Ethan and Josh are not in the club and the only true Tennesseans get to actually see the squirrel? What if he actually only shows himself to Ryan and myself? Like, that might be a situation.
I like
where we can't rule it out.
He doesn't like sports. I think that's what it is. But regardless.
That's true. I don't know. I've seen him outside the stadium. I've never seen him inside. So that's a good question. What if he's not allowed? What if there's like a curse around Neyland where he's allowed to be everywhere but inside Neyland? What if that's how it is?
That's it. Well, he'll have to get over our coverage of basketball this tomorrow, and then obviously women's basketball against UConn on Sunday. Josh and I will be heading down to Columbia, so we'll have live coverage from that. And
how far is Columbia from here?
4 hours, 18 minutes.
Oh, exactly my birthday. 4/18.
There you go.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah, I like it. That's a big. Y'all are making the trip for South Carolina.
It's a beautiful 1 o'clock tip off. Easy day
it's
trip.
Perfect.
It works out well.
Okay. Wait, is it 1 o'clock tomorrow? Oh, okay. Well, I was way off. Sammy, Samsonite. No, I had 6 in my head for some reason. Well, that's good.
CBS, Kevin Harlan on the call. Did you not hear Jim Nantz reading the promo for it during the AFC Championship game? It was the next sporting event on CBS. Well, what is bigger? What's a bigger sporting event on CBS? AFC Championship game, Tennessee, South Carolina in the middle of February.
I'm not going to lie. I wasn't paying that close attention to the ads and Jim Nance's ad reads. I can't say that was at the top of my mind. But now that you said that, now I want to be like, oh, I should have recognized that. Yes, Ethan.
Did I hear it right that Kevin Harlan is announcing this game?
Yeah.
That's correct.
That's incredible.
Also,
that's
Ethan's the most polite, nice human being, and we should protect him at all costs. This man just raised his hand on this podcast. Did you see that, Ryan? This man just raised his hand.
Gonna make sure I'm not getting talked. It was an important question.
Yeah. You don't have to raise your hand. You are an equal party on this podcast, Ethan. Equal party. Unless Carnes is playing Oak Ridge, like, it's an equal situation. Like, that's how this works.
Understood.
Well, there we go. We did it. Another pod. Go Big Orange Friday on YouTube. Go subscribe. YouTube, Chase Thomas Podcast. We're here every week. And if you like listening to this podcast, make sure you give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Guys, you have a safe weekend traveling to South Carolina, Columbia, all that good stuff. We got Litton's to look forward to on Monday, it looks like. Litton's is going to happen. So we'll gain a couple pounds on Monday, and then we'll be back next week.
Let's do it.